Hey everyone, welcome back to the Hooded Casual. Today I want to share with you the leveling path I've been using recently for the Primalist, and honestly it's been working out really smoothly. This setup focuses on a steady progression through the early campaign, keeps things simple where it needs to be, and introduces a strong transformation playstyle a bit later on. Now I'm definitely not saying this is the only way to level a Primalist, or even the best possible one. But if you're looking for a build that keeps the campaign flowing smoothly without too much downtime or complicated setups, this should do the trick. And of course, if you've got suggestions or ways to refine it, drop them in the comments. I'm always open to improving it further based on your experiences. So let's get right into it. At level 2, the first thing we're going to do is replace the default basic attack with Gathering Storm. It's a straightforward skill that works great at this stage to help you deal damage while your Summon Wolf keeps enemies distracted. This combo is enough to handle the earliest zones without much trouble. By level 4, we're picking up Fury Leap. This is a key movement skill you'll be using all throughout the campaign, and it's going to make getting through chapters much faster. Don't underestimate how much time you save just by leaping over half a screen instead of walking. Around this time, we're also adding Summon Thorn Totem to our setup. This gives you some extra damage output for those early packs and makes dealing with slightly tankier enemies a lot more manageable. Now at level 5, it's time for the first real skill change. We're dropping Gathering Storm and picking up Swipe. This becomes our primary damage skill for the early part of the campaign. It's simple, it works, and it's also going to scale nicely with some of the early gear you'll find. At the same time, you'll also want to start using Atera's Blessing. This skill isn't just for healing yourself, it also keeps your wolf alive longer. It also boosts your allies' damage, which helps soak up some of the pressure in larger fights. Now in terms of gear, at this stage we're not getting too picky. Just focus on getting as much health and physical resistance as you can find. Defensive stats will do more for you than trying to chase early damage. For weapons, go for a two-handed axe or polearm if you can find one, and prioritize any weapon that rolls chance to bleed on hit or chance to ignite on hit. Both are great ways to passively boost your damage output without having to rely too much on mana. For accessories, it's a good idea to grab silver rings early on, simply for the movement speed bonus. It makes a huge difference when you're clearing maps. You'll also want to knock out the early side quests that give passive points. These make a noticeable difference in the early game. The first one you'll want to complete is Storeroom Saboteurs, located in the storerooms at area level 5. That's an easy extra passive point to grab early on. So, to quickly recap where we are before we move on, you're using Swipe for your main damage, you've got Summon Wolf out for support, Fury Leap is already helping with faster movement, and you're throwing down Thorn Totems for extra AoE when things get a bit crowded. Atera's Blessing on allies for damage boost. Here I show you the skill points and passive points spent till this moment. At this stage, don't stress too much about itemization. Just keep working toward getting your physical resistance capped, grab health regen wherever possible, and focus on moving through the chapters efficiently. This first phase is really about laying a solid foundation for the more powerful setups coming shortly. Alright, moving into the early game setup, this is where the gameplay really starts to feel smoother, and you'll notice a nice bump in your clear speed. At level 10, we're making our first big shift. Go ahead and respec out of Summon Thorn Totem and swap in Tempest Strike. This is where we begin to lean into elemental damage and smoother skill rotations. Tempest Strike does a great job dealing consistent damage while still being easy to spam. At this point, you'll still have Swipe on your bar, and you'll be using that when you run out of mana. It's a nice fallback and keeps you moving through packs without too much downtime, but the main focus now is on spending as much mana as possible with Tempest Strike. Once you reach about 15 passive points, usually around level 15 or so, you're going to respec again. This time, we're dropping Swipe entirely and picking up Summon Stormcrows. Now, a quick note here. Don't worry about using their active ability at all. We're just using them as a passive way to help spend mana efficiently and keep our momentum going. You'll also swap out Swipe on your skill bar for Gathering Storm. which becomes your backup skill when you're out of mana. At some point, you will stop using it. Probably during that part of campaign, you are going to choose Mastery, select Druid. We are going to use Bear Form in further setup. Fury Leap is still staying with us here, and honestly, it's probably going to stay on your bar for the entire campaign. The ability to just leap straight over terrain and directly into a pack is something you'll never want to give up, especially as you push through the longer campaign chapters. In terms of gear, by now you should definitely have a staff equipped. Even if the base isn't perfect, prioritize any modifiers that increase overall damage. The flat spell damage and any lightning damage rolls will help a lot as we prepare for the next big skill shift coming up. You'll also want to look out for an important uniques here, Avarice Gloves, which gives you a really nice leech effect and just makes everything feel a bit smoother in terms of sustain. You'll actually get this one for free by completing the Urza's Ledger quest in Urza's Library at area level 11, so make sure not to skip that. And speaking of quests, don't forget to pick up those passive points along the way. Evacuation in Last Refuge Outskirts at area level 10, easy passive point. Urza's Ledger for the passive point and that free Avarice, and the Upper District in area level 14 for another passive point. At this point, things are really starting to click. Your rotation is simple: spam Tempest Strike, use Gathering Storm when you're out of mana, and leap through maps with Fury Leap. This phase is all about moving quickly and efficiently toward the big milestone that's coming around level 20. That's when we unlock Tornado, and believe me, that's where things really start to get exciting. That's the actual state of passives in this stage of the campaign. Alright, here's where the build really starts to take shape. Once you hit level 20, it's time for a big upgrade. This is when we unlock Tornado, and honestly, from this point on, the entire leveling experience just feels faster and a lot more explosive. The first thing you'll want to do is spend 5 points in the Shaman passive tree. This unlocks the ability to specialize into Tornado. Go ahead and remove Tempest Strike from your skill bar and replace it with Tornado. You're now moving fully into a spell-based playstyle, and you'll immediately notice how much faster packs are melting. Tornado hits hard, it covers a big area, and it does all the heavy lifting while you stay mobile and safe. We're also making a small but important respec here. Drop Summon Stormcrows and bring Gathering Storm back onto your skill bar. It's going to act as your fallback skill again when you're out of mana, but at this point you'll be spending most of your time just spamming Tornado anyway. And hey, don't forget, you still have Fury Leap. Keep using it aggressively. It's a massive time saver for clearing maps and repositioning quickly during fights. Now at this point, you might be excited to try out Werebear Form since it unlocks around level 20, but a quick heads up, don't rush into it just yet. You want to wait until you can grab the Unending Storm node in the Werebear skill tree. That's when the real synergy kicks in. Until then, it's better to stick with human form for casting Tornado and saving that big transformation for later when it's really worth it. The reason is we simply want to rampage without cooldown to play it smoothly. In terms of gear, the next target is a Copper Amulet. This is a nice pickup because it increases your flat spell damage, and that directly scales with your Tornado output. From here, you also want to keep focusing on health and physical resistance affixes. Survivability is still the priority until your damage scales a bit more. This is also a good moment to focus on picking up key side quests that provide either passive points or extra idle slots. An Ancient Hunt in the Ancient Forest, area level 20, gives you valuable idle slots. The Lesser Refuge quest in the Lost Refuge nets you 2 passive points, which is huge for pushing your damage further. And don't forget the Corrupted Lake quest at area level 26. It rewards a passive point and more idle slots, which really help open up your build options. If you're feeling like the build is starting to plateau around level 30 or so, don't worry, that's normal. Things are about to ramp up again in a big way once we unlock Werebear Form's Unending Storm. For now, focus on spamming Tornado, using Gathering Storm to keep things rolling when your mana dips and moving fast through the campaign chapters. You're right on the edge of hitting that final setup, and once it clicks, you'll start steamrolling everything in your path. During that section, you should be around that point in terms of passives. Oh, just a quick note about gear. I'll try to include a snapshot or a quick overview of some useful items you can look for during the campaign, just to give you an idea of what helps smooth things out in video description. That said, full honesty here, I'm terrible at following my own advices. In fact, the run you've been watching was recorded with some pretty rough gear. I basically just upgraded my weapon now and then, slapped on whatever had some spell damage, a bit of lightning damage, and made sure I had movement speed on my boots. Oh, and I stuck with the Avarice gloves all the way into early monoliths. So really don't stress too much about gear unless you feel like your damage is really falling off. This build carries itself pretty hard through just skill rotations and good movement. If you feel comfortable with the gameplay loop, the gear will catch up naturally. Worry about upgrades when you hit a wall, not before. Alright, this is the part where everything we've been setting up finally comes together. Once you hit level 35 and unlock that 4th specialization slot, we're stepping into the final setup that's going to carry you through the rest of the campaign and right into monolith content. The first major addition here is Warcry. You'll want to slot this in immediately and make a habit of using it on cooldown while in human form. Warcry isn't just a defensive skill, it's going to trigger important procs like Maelstrom later on and set up a lot of your burst damage. Now, once you unlock Unending Storm in the Werebear Form skill tree, that's when it's finally time to fully embrace the transformation playstyle. From here on out, the core loop becomes all about swapping between human form for spellcasting and Werebear Form for pure destruction. Here's how it works. In human form, you're going to dump all of your mana into tornado casts. Don't worry about conserving anything, just keep throwing them out until you're dry. Once you're out of mana, hit Werebear Form and go straight into Rampage. Rampage will absolutely tear through packs, and the Unending Storm synergy means you're constantly spawning lightning storms as you charge around the battlefield. While in Werebear Form, make sure to hit Roar whenever it's off cooldown. It boosts your survivability and keeps those storms rolling. Then, as soon as Werebear Form ends, you're back to spamming Tornado again. Rinse and repeat. This rotation is incredibly fluid, and once you get the timing down, it just feels really smooth. Boss fights become all about managing your cooldowns and bouncing between forms. We also bring in Maelstrom Cause. At this point, we really don't want to use any more Gathering Storm, but don't worry, you're not manually casting this one. It's all proxed through Warcry. This adds another layer of damage and makes your bursts during both human and Werebear forms even more impactful. When it comes to gear progression, this is the phase where you start looking for very specific upgrades. Around level 40, pick up a Sapphire Ring if you can. This helps boost your damage significantly. If you can also stack cast speed at this point, it's a huge bonus. The faster you're able to throw out tornadoes in human form, the more damage you're going to pump out before switching back into Werebear Form for cleanup. There are a few last side quests to hit before you finish up the campaign. A Heoborian Cure quest for extra idle slots, found in the Wengari Fortress, the Ice Caverns, and the Tundra. Liberating the nomads in the Wengari Fortress also gives you more idle slots, and that's pretty much the final setup. By the time you finish up Chapter 7 and defeat the Frostroot Warden, you should have the full set of 15 passive points and 8 idle slots unlocked. From there, you can either head straight into the Monolith of Fate or finish the campaign for that last +1 to all attributes bonus if you want to round things out completely. At this point, the gameplay loop feels fast, the damage is consistent, and survivability is high enough that the campaign and early Monolith timelines should feel really smooth. These are the passive and skill points I'd allocated by the time I finished the campaign. And that's pretty much everything for this guide. Thanks a ton for sticking through it with me. I'm leaving you right here at what I think is a really solid sweet spot for transitioning into other builds. Whether you want to keep pushing further with this Werebear setup or pivot into something entirely different, this is a great point to start experimenting. You've got the core passives, your gear's in a good place, and you're well into Monolith content. Perfect time to try out new ideas. Like I said earlier, this isn't the one and only way to do things. It's just what's been working smoothly. If you found ways to make it even better, or if you've transitioned into a completely different endgame setup from here, I'd love to hear about it. Feel free to drop your thoughts, feedback, or even just share your experiences down in the comments. And hey, if you enjoyed the video or found it helpful, it really helps me out if you leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. I'm planning more contents, and your support is what keeps it all going. Thanks again for watching, good luck with your journey, and I'll see you in the next one.